Going on, friends? Welcome to another 6-1 Indie Showcase conversation. My name is Mike, along with Becca on the 6-1 Indie side. Hello, Becca.
Hi.
And today we're joined by Alamode Games, CB and Tom from Sorry We're Closed, launching November 14th. Yay. No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you guys? How are you feeling? The news is out there.
I think it's good.
It's
It's nice to be able to show more of the game to people and to let them know when they can play it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's that combination of there's lots of like butterflies because it's like our first ever thing, like our first ever project, right? So yeah, just like having to imagine that our little baby's going to go out there into the world and we'll no longer have like complete ownership of it,
Sure.
in that way. And just people get to see it and interpret it themselves.
So you're saying Akupora owns your souls. Gotcha. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I actually, on that note, Alcapo's been great because
I love them.
they have they've really let us just like kind of create what we wanted to create. Like so essentially, we check in with them from time to time just to sort of like let them know how things are going, but they've not really interfered with the direction, the creative direction at all. So yeah, we've really been able to kind of make something that's our own. And just 100% like our own personalities and what we want to be in it. So yeah, on that front, I'm just really glad it went that way because I have other indie dev friends who have had the complete opposite
Sure.
experience. So
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we featured Aquapora Blocked during the showcase, so we got to chat with the Video Cult folks and the folks behind Cabaret, and it very much seems like that same kind of similar vibe. And obviously, we've been working with Buddy Xavier and the crew over there for seems like an eternity now. And they're lovely individuals, so good at what they do. Really align with the indie kind of scene and supporting one another. So awesome to hear that it's reflected on your end as well. Um, so we should probably get into the game. Please tell us about yourselves and Sorry We're Closed in case somehow people don't know what the game is. And a bit of your game dev story.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. Just to start off, Sorry We're Closed is it's a story-driven survival horror game, which kind of feels like at odds with each other because normally with survival horror, you think of isolation and being completely alone, but in our game, there's actually kind of two parts to it. We do have segments where you're in combat, you are kind of like alone, you're trying to survive, playing a young woman named Michelle. But then there's like this whole other half of the game where you're in town and you're like kind of talking to your friends and you're messing around with their lives.
Yeah, it's a bit of meddling. You can help or hinder in the lives of other residents. There's a big romance theme, so there's lots of relationships you can influence, I would say, during the game.
Yeah.
We have multiple endings, so the more you dig into those side stories, the more opportunities you'll have for how the game concludes.
Yeah. And yeah, just the main premise of it is you play a young woman named Michelle. She's still getting over a bad breakup, and there is a demon who comes around who goes after lonely souls and says, you're lonely, I'm lonely, we should be together. And, it's up for the player to decide how they handle that, kind of lingering question. So yeah, that's what Sorry We're Closes.
Game dev story.
Yeah, game dev story.
I don't have one. This is the first game I've worked on. I was
I mean,
doing
that's the story.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
But yeah, no, sorry, you were saying there, Tom.
Oh, yeah. My background is software development, so I'm not new to coding, but I'm new to applying that to games. It was a lockdown project, so we were at home a lot. I was looking at some tutorials online. I got a little character walking around. I made like a block person in Blender, and then
I saw it.
yeah,
I saw it, and I said, Tom, I'll do the modeling. You just sit there, do the programming. Don't worry about the assets. I'll make those for you because that thing was terrifying to look at.
But the first model Christine made was
Yeah, it's
Michelle,
Michelle.
our protagonist.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. My background is I did have I did some contract work for another company. So but that was as a character artist, doing like, character art, 2D character art. And I was with them for a couple of years, and that kind of helped me understand like how one part of the industry works. But when working on a bigger team like that, it's very much you just stay in your lane. Like I was only allowed really to kind of do the 2D art, so
Well, it's a bigger machine. Everyone
yeah,
has sort of
roles. Yeah,
specialities.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's more specialized, so it's like you can't divert off the path, otherwise, you cause problems. But anyway, and besides that, I kind of did like I'd done paintings for other indie devs. Like I did some paintings on for Kaizen Gameworks for Paradise Killer, and I
Oh,
did some
nice.
paintings for like another indie dev named Dosku. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
Kaizen Gameworks also a part of the showcase for
All
Promise Mascot.
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think yeah, I know.
one big family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're really cool guys.
Oh,
I
they're
remember
lovely.
talking to them when we first started like developing Sorry We're Closed, and we showed them like a really early prototype before sending it off to Akabara. And yeah, he was the what's his name?
Ollie.
Yes, he like had to play with it, and he was just really supportive and had like really great advice and stuff. So he was cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's the great thing about the scene in general. And I'm sure you guys learned this like as you guys start creating your first game and like really getting into the scene. Everybody is just so lovely, and we just all have each other's backs. That goes from like the dev side, the publisher side, even like on our side of things where it's indie focused media. Just all one big happy family, just trying to claw our way to the top beyond Call of Duties and Assassin's Creeds.
I always describe it to people as like, like when ants are like stuck in the ocean and they have to like hold on to each other to create like a little raft. So we're like
Yeah.
all these little ants who are just like grabbing onto each other for dear life, trying to survive the storm of the game industry.
I mean,
But
I felt
it
like that
works.
my entire life, even before games.
Yeah.
Well, kind of touching on the debut a little bit. Of course, this is your first title, and it's a survival horror title. Um, it's quite the unique survival horror game. At least, just I haven't had a chance to go hands on yet, but like even just from the trailer alone, you're not making a Resident Evil like game. That's pretty damn clear. Um, for the debut title, was that always the intention of like making a unique take on survival horror, or did you have other concepts or prototypes that kind of led you to Sorry We're Closed?
um, So okay, yeah, we didn't really do other like prototyping or anything. I think and we weren't really thinking so much of like how do we make this different. It was just literally the question of what do we want to make.
It was at
Yeah.
this table. We're at our dining table now, and this is where it began. We were sat across from each other. We had notebooks. We were writing down if we made a game, what would it be? We talked about different mechanics we liked. I was like Ocarina of Time and the lens of truth that kind of bled into the third eye ability that we have in the
Hold
game and
on,
the
you
two
have
worlds. Do I have a spider on me?
you have a spider on your hair,
Okay.
and I'm trying to save it. I'm so sorry.
The third developer,
Thank you.
the one truly pulling all the strings.
Yeah. Yeah, but sorry, you're saying, Tom.
The perfect partner, by the way.
Yeah.
My wife would have
Oh.
smacked me to
Oh.
get it off.
No. I don't mind. I'm used to them now. Like in the UK, we don't really have super dangerous spiders, so you can kind of.
On the east coast of the United States, we have those flying spiders that are apparently like traveling from Florida upwards. They're yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, if I was still there, I'd probably be like your partner and just like but no.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was
Anyways,
really, yeah, it was really just a case of like, what do we want to make? And I think it just happened that because we injected so much of just generally what we like, that's just what made it different in the end.
Yeah, we both had a range of influences. I think more Silent Hill for you, like watching your brothers play it.
Yeah, Silent Hill and Jet Set Radio, the two
Yep.
games that definitely go together.
the two key survival horror titles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's such an interesting like influence for horror, Jet Set Radio. But like you could totally see it in just the vibe, the aesthetic. It really makes sense. And like horror is one of those genres that like I feel like you can have fun with. It doesn't really have many rules. Like it doesn't like horror, in my opinion, doesn't always equate to scary. It's just kind of like
Mm.
the vibe, the aesthetic, just the flow and the rhythm of like the narrative that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, I think when it comes to horror, it's one of these things where it doesn't or at least in my mind, it doesn't always have to be like super scary. I think you can still have hard themed things like the Rocky Horror Picture Show or Scooby
Yeah.
Doo. You know, all of these things have those elements in them. And I think sometimes, you know, just using kind of exaggerated kind of either like violence or extreme situations or highly stressful situations to tell a story kind of help drive a message home just because, you know, that's what we're used to in life. Like there are sometimes there are things in our lives aren't particularly terrifying, but they're so stressful that they feel horrifying. And,
Yeah.
you know, so it works in that way, I think.
And
Yeah.
there were
Totally makes sense.
quite a few sort of bright and vibrant games that really scared me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll go back to Ocarina of Time again. Under the Well in Ocarina of Time was very scary for me. Some things in like Rayman 2, that was one of my first 3D games that I played. Um, and then Half-Life 1, or we were playing that at a friend's house and I was like 10, and that was very terrifying. That's meant to be a bit scary, but it looks very sort of,
Colorful.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really
it's got
colorful.
bright colors. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, taking Zelda in general, Zelda has like some pretty gnarly stuff in it that I'm sure kind of equated to some childhood things, qualms, we'll call them. Yeah, some pretty gnarly stuff in there. So it makes sense that like that would be an inspiration behind the game.
Yeah. I just want to say what an incredible first game for you guys because it just is so impressive looking. And I played the demo, which I love and have not stopped talking about since I played it. Um, I think the thing that is one of the most incredible things about it is that it does that seamless switch between first person and third person so well. Like you guys said, were kind of inspired by Silent Hill in that third person fixed camera angle perspective. But kind of how did you guys approach that shift in perspective between first person and third person?
Um, so, okay, so starting out, we always knew we wanted to kind of try this thing of like shooting in first person because we always thought like, oh, it might feel scarier if you're having to kind of be in place and you're seeing like like the enemies kind of coming at you in first person.
Because yeah, we can't move when we go into first person. So
Yeah.
as soon as you enter that aiming mode, you're fixed in spot in the game.
Yeah, so it's like you're having to make a real decision of to like, okay, am I going to try and make a stand and you know engage with these enemies, or am I just going to like try and skirt past them if it's possible? So I think it like kind of pushes that more into that angle. Um, Admittedly, there were like a couple things we had to sort of do to make it work because initially when we very first developed it, it used to be that once you went into first person, it was immediate. Like there was absolutely no delay. And it was really strange because you'd think that when it comes to combat, especially that, you know, you just want everything to be super responsive. But it turned out that it actually just made people feel more disorientated for some reason.
Or you have if you're pressing it on and off to aim and come out of aiming, it could almost flicker because
Yeah.
you'd have the
Mm.
change in perspective immediately. So we added a little delay. Michelle kind of raises her weapon up, and you start to see that in third person. Then we cut to first person, and if you've started to raise your weapon and change your mind, if you let go of the button, you stay in third person, so you can kind of back out without that quick flash in and out of first person.
And yeah, and I think that kind of comes with as well, like it just gives the player just like a moment to kind of readjust what their expectation is. Admittedly, it, for some people, like it does take a little bit longer for some people to kind of get used to it than others.
We still
Sure.
get, the occasional request, oh, why can't we move in first person?
Hmm.
Which I think is a natural response when you're stuck on the spot. But when we were testing that, especially for me, I felt, well, why can't I examine things in first person if I can move? Why can't I open doors? And then
All of a
you
sudden, you're trying
start,
to make a
you're,
different
you're
game.
making a first person game then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, so we kind of stuck with it, and I mean, there are so many other things about the combat that actually had to change in order for us to like kind of justify keeping the first person combat in the first place.
Hmm.
You know, like we have like this sort of kind of combo, you know, with the weak points and using the vision, and that came later in development, which really helped push the good feeling that people get when engaging with the combat. So yeah, it was a little bit of a bumpy ride to get there, but I'm just glad people like it now.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's honestly incredible.
Thank you,
Are you
thank you.
telling me game dev is hard?
Oh God, I constantly think of that tweet that was like, "Oh, when nobody ever told me that when you make a game, you have to make the whole thing." Like I say that to myself every day now.
Yeah. Kind of speaking of the genre and like some of some of the mechanics that you're implementing into the genre, possibly a loaded question. What makes not only a good survival horror game, but one that truly stands out from the pack? Because we're in quite a bit of a renaissance nowadays. And like Starry We're Closed is one of those games, in my opinion, that is a standout, similar to like a Crow Country or Hollow Body that's coming up. But yeah, I'm curious, like, if you had any thoughts on that.
Okay, so I'm one of these people who I think when it comes to these sort of things, I always end up with almost a non-answer because I feel that oftentimes good things are good despite the genre, and it's when the person is more focused on what is it that they actually want to create, it'll happen to fall into a genre that people try to categorize it in, and that it just ends up being a good game or a good book, movie, whatever, that happens to be that genre. I think sometimes it can be really hard to try and think of what the genre is first and then work with that. Just because trying to go from that angle, you can almost start restricting yourself into thinking it has to tick these boxes. And there
Sure.
are times where we feel like, okay, we are going for a survival horror kind of game, so there are certain things that would be nice to include because we appreciate certain mechanics from other survival horror games. But yeah, at the same time, I think if the person is just sort of authentic to what they really want to make, they really want to tell and show with the thing that they're making, that's going to trump trying to think of how do I take this genre and subvert it, like, or at least that's what I feel worked for us. I don't know. You might feel differently, Tom.
What do I feel? Um, I feel we're lucky to have had the reception we've had. We've had a range of people who've supported us and playtested and given us feedback, and that's helped us make the game better. Um, it feels like a series of accidents to how we got to today. We were both working full time when we started on the project. We just worked in the evenings and weekends. We cobbled together a trailer and showed it at EEK3, like an indie horror showcase.
Love those
Um,
folks.
had a really positive reception, and we were able to quit our jobs and work full time on it for the last 2 years. So hopefully we can live up to that expectation for people. But for us, it's the success has been being able to make it and having that opportunity. So it's just been our lives for the last couple of years, putting everything into it to try and make a game that people enjoy.
hopefully enjoy,
Yeah,
and a game we enjoy making. I think
yeah.
that always comes down to it too. Like, it's that thing of sometimes when we're making like when we're trying to put something into the game, or if I'm like doing some of the writing or whatever, I'm just like, if it's boring, then we just try to take it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped. I think that's helped in some way, trying to like in making it stand out and making it enjoyable. And
Oh, there's one. The art, Christine's art. That's easy for me to say as a programmer, but Christine has worked so hard on the visuals for the game.
It's incredible.
Thank you, but
Yeah.
Your
no,
background's
no,
been
just thank you.
2D art. So I think that certainly helps us stand out in a crowd. And yeah, I'm very grateful we got Christine
Yeah, I guess our game
on the
stands
team.
out like in a way just because like it's also super queer, and like it's very vibrant, and everybody keeps telling me like, oh man, the characters are so hot, and it's like, well, I can't help it.
I'm just built that way. I'm sorry, dude. Just flows out.
So yeah, I
I
hope we
mean,
can meet everyone's expectations.
we're biased, but I think you're exceeding it. Kind of speaking about like kind of the art and like that standout. I've been obsessing over Akumara's track in that trailer, or the Dream Eater track. It's such a banger. Like, oh my god, it's such a banger. Does music play an important role in the game, or was that something specific for the trailer, just to kind of like set the tone of the world?
Okay, so Okamura, who they've been really awesome to work with. They've made several tracks for the game, and music is important to the game in the sense that music's important to me. So it's not got a mechanical purpose, but it does
Totally.
have a reflective purpose. So, for example,
Awesome.
that track in particular, depending on how you play the story, it has a couple variations in it itself,
Ooh,
which has been really fun to try and construct with them. But yeah, Okamura. The funny thing is like I played No More Heroes 3, and Okamura, they're on a track in No More Heroes 3, the sushi bar track, and that was like literally like not even exaggerating. I was like, this is the best track of the game.
You were playing it a couple of months before our
Yeah,
trailer came out, when we first announced the game.
and like I'd be
And then
sitting like at the sushi bar just to listen to it, and then like we put the trailer out, and then
one evening, there's just a scream from the room. I'm like, what happened? So I run upstairs, and
yeah, they like
they had
messaged.
messaged you.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
messaged us. They're like, "Hey, we saw the trailer for Sorry We're Closed. Do you want to work together?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." Like,
yeah.
so we just started chatting, and I told him like, what the themes were, what I'm like kind of wanting to express, and it was yeah, it was just really cool to kind of work with them and talk about the themes and get the ideas down. So for the most part, like they've for their tracks, they've like kind of put the music and stuff together. There's one track though where I got to also do some production work on it, and I've not really done music before this game, so
sure.
that was really fun to do and to sort of collaborate on musically. I've never had done that before, so yeah, I'm just really hoping that people look forward to like their contributions, because I definitely feel that they've they've make Sorry We're Close stand out in a way, because like there are not many horror games that have like a rap track like laid on top of it, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
So
you guys and El Paso Elsewhere,
Yeah.
like two banger records so far.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Like I'm not upset to be compared to that, so I'm happy. I'm happy.
Yeah, Xavier is not a bad person to be compared to. A man who somehow has time to make 15 games in a single year.
Yeah, somehow.
Madman.
Absolutely.
uh,
we should do a shout out for Kat and Arthur, who's doing
oh
the
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
combat area music, the kind of
Ooh, nice.
background sounds when we're in the combat areas.
yeah.
They've
So
been working on some yeah, that just really elevates those levels for
yeah,
us.
we've got like a couple of sound people who've been working on Sorry We're Closed with us, provided by the publisher. So yeah, it's been really nice to work with them, because I wanted some really like I like weirdo music, and I was like, hey, can we get like some industrial stuff? Like I want it to sound like I need the sound of newspapers and trains and banging trash cans. Can you make that sound like there's a beat, but there's not a beat? Like literally, that's like what my requests were, and they're like, "I got you covered," So
It's like when I'm playing like clipping or horror at home. Just getting
clipping. That was one of them. That
hell
was
yeah.
one of my inspirations. I sent loads of links. I was like, "Listen to this."
See, we're on the same page. I'm into some sicko music.
Yeah, right. Like I love that weirdo stuff, man.
Yeah,
So
dude,
yeah,
rocks.
yeah, literally. I was like, well, there you go. So I was like, listen to this, Captain. Make something like that's got this sort of vibe. I want, hit some pipes if you need to make it work. And they did. They delivered. So that was really cool. So yeah, that's how music affects the game.
Amazing to hear. I was like really hoping it wasn't just a trailer track, and
Yeah.
like, okay, cool,
No,
good to
no,
know.
it's in there. It's in there.
Hell yeah.
All right, guys. So Mike has passed the torch to me to close it out with the question that we like to ask everybody at the end of our interviews. There's no right or wrong answer to this. We just want to know, in your words, what does indie mean to you?
Okay. So
You might answer this already with the ants. That I mean, honestly, that was
Yeah.
perfect.
yeah. We are all ants. No, I think for me, it's to try and keep it sort of concise. If I can, I'm not good at that, but essentially, I feel that there's like kind of this wider, like sort of broader stroke where you can say something is or isn't indie, which kind of works. But it's like the second you start once you get like a group of studios and say, okay, these are indie studios, they're going to function so differently from each other just because they've had different opportunities available to them.
There's so many different setups. I mean, it can be one person, working after work on something for years, or a couple of people. It can be people putting their life savings into it, people who get funding, people who don't get funding. There's so many routes through to how the
Mm,
project gets made,
yeah, and in
and
our
different struggles.
yeah, in our instance, we the two of us have made about like 98% of the game, and we're doing the long hours, and staying at home on the weekends, and it's not just because it's like, oh, that's what's supposed to happen in the games industry. It's the instance of, this is our first game and we don't know if we're ever going to have another opportunity to make something like this, so it's like we are giving everything we got that we possibly can. um, and having Akapara like help us with our funding as a publisher has helped facilitate us being able to make the game.
Yeah, the game wouldn't exist without them because we'd have still been doing it.
Well, it would
Well, it would be
exist,
very
but
different.
it wouldn't exist as it
Yeah.
was. It'd be a smaller
Sure.
experience. It would be, yeah, just a much smaller experience. And Akapar saw something in what we were making and said, "Hey, do you need a publisher? We'd like to help." And in that instance, yeah, they've allowed us to kind of realize our full the game's full potential. And yeah, so for us, that's the fact that it is just us two doing so much of the work.
There's been a discussion about credits recently that's gone around, I think. So, oh, how can it be an indie game if there's all these people in the credits? Our game will have more than two people in the credits. I mean, if 90% of it is us upstairs at home working on the game for a lot of hours, that's sort of the core of how it was made. But all those other people localizing the game or testing the game, the people we've collaborated on with music, they've all made it better.
And they
um,
deserve to have.
and they should be in the credits.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
And the spider.
And the spider.
Yeah.
All 8 of his legs.
But yeah, it's literally
Maybe indie is the struggle, and the people around that help you through it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything in life. There's just no way to completely categorize something 100%. And to be fair, for me, like personally, this is a personal struggle. I'm mixed race, so like by definition, I fit like nowhere. Like people have tried so hard to categorize me and like my life and how I am and how I exist, and it does not work. Everyone who's tried, it just doesn't work. And that's always made me realize, like, there is nothing in life that just goes into a particular box and it just stays there and sits untouched. So when it I guess when it comes down to it, when people say, well, what do you think an indie studio or an indie game is, I just be like, I don't think about it. I try not to.
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, I think on that point also, I think that totally wow, I can't talk, encapsulates what indie is as well. Like indie is just, excuse my language, punk as fuck. And
yeah.
it can be people that are building, or like people fleshing out this community from all facets of life, and we're all just kind of like in it to win it. And I think
Yeah.
that unfortunately can't be said for the AAA side of things, for the mainstream side of things. Hopefully we're slowly getting better at that,
Mhm.
hopefully one of these days, like a decade or two. um but yeah, like I think that beautifully kind of like captures like just the spirit of indie in general. It's just like, no matter where you're coming from, no matter what you look like, no matter what you, whatever, I'm losing my train of thought,
Yeah.
wherever you're from, you're indie, you're one of us, you're part of the community. And between dev, publisher, media, influencer, community, like we're all just trying to uplift one another.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the academics and the scholars can argue over it for eternity. I ain't got time for that. I just want to make games.
Hell yeah, that's all it's about.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you made a killer game. I'm very
Thank you.
excited for the full version. sorry we're closed November 14th.
Yeah.
Please plug away. Where can people find you? Where can people play the game?
Okay.
All that good stuff.
So it's going to be coming out on Steam on November 14th. So that's our PC release, and that will be it'll be on Steam. I'll put it that way. And
There's a demo out now. If
Yeah.
you want to try it, the demo is on Steam.
Try the
Yeah.
demo out. Try it out. There's lots of little hotties in it. You can find us on Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care.
As you should.
Yeah.
That's
It's Alamode Games.
Alamode Games. Yeah.
And I think that's it for the social media at the moment. We'll expand on the social media when we've got time. Right now, we're just trying to finish the game.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's where you can find us. Play the demo,
Sweet.
please. Thank you.
And also wishlist the game, of course.
And wishlist the game. Wishlist it. Play the demo. Tell your friends about it. Tell your mom about it. Tell
Hype it up.
your children about it. Tell everyone about it. And only if you like it, though. If you don't like it, don't say anything.
Lie about it.
Absolutely.
As soon as this wraps up, call your grandma. Tell her about this sicko game with Akamora in it.
With the weirdo music. The sicko game with the weirdo music.
Yeah. With all these queer hotties smooching each other. Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Grannies love that shit. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Of course, everyone listening, everyone watching, sixoneindie.com/showcase has all the links to find these folks, and of course, wishlist the game, play the demo. You can find everything there, and also on the I don't think we mentioned this at all during any of these interviews because it just got confirmed yesterday. On the Steam page, the Steam event page, so bit.ly/61steam, you'll be able to find. Sorry, we're closed. Guys, thank you. Pleasure. Becca, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, bye, y'all.